The quirky, unusual BMW i3 has been in the headlines quite a lot this week. Depending on whom you talk to, it's either about to get pulled from the BMW lineup with almost immediate effect, or stick around in its current form for the foreseeable future, but just not get any kind of second-generation refresh. Either way, it's confirmed that the BMW i3's future extends no further than BMW deciding to keep making it. The news, whichever version you decide to listen to, has caused some people to claim that the BMW i3 was a total failure, and it's caused others to claim BMW is killing its own chances of building great electric cars. But what if they're both kind of right? What if the BMW i3 was a car before its time, a car that got things right? But what if it also got things catastrophically wrong, thus explaining its poor sales figures of late? I'm about to tell you why both of these things are true at the same time. Well, sort of. Let's start by going through the cancelling of the i3, whatever that will actually entail and whenever that will actually happen. And to do that, I need to look at the reason behind the i3's existence. The BMW i3 was made by the company under the i brand, a brand designed specifically to allow it to test new drivetrains and production techniques without sullying the main BMW image should anything go wrong. A brand whose sole purpose was to be cutting edge. And now it's pretty much given that electric vehicles are here to stay, BMW is electrifying its entire family, from the brand new all-electric Mini Cooper SE that's about to hit the roads around the world, to the iX3 electric crossover and the whole plug-in hybrid iDrivetrain equipped variants being rolled out of existing BMW sedans and SUVs. It frankly no longer feels concerned about selling plug-in cars from a separate brand, and BMW is much more confident than it was once selling them as mainstream BMW models. And that frankly is a testament to just how far electric vehicle adoption and attitudes have come in the last decade. But here's the thing, while the i3 allowed BMW to experiment with new ways of doing things, the very things which made the i3 special are now being taken away. And I, for one, think that's a shame, because BMW did a lot of things right with the i3. Now, I'm not talking about the target market, because the i3 really didn't fit into a marketplace that needed a high-end luxury city electric car, which, let's face it, is what the i3 is best at doing. I'm talking about the engineering and some of the unique things that BMW did that it's now turning its back on, rather disappointingly. First up, let's talk about the construction. Rather than use lots of heavy materials, the i3 made its use of carbon fiber reinforced plastic and recycled materials its signature thing. The CFRP not only meant that the i3 was lighter than the competition, but also required less energy to construct. And I think it's fair to give BMW kudos for this, as I think it was one of the first automakers to really sit down and figure out the carbon footprint of its vehicle manufacturing process and pay attention to it. The lighter weight meant that the i3 used far less energy to push itself along than many of its contemporaries. It went further per kilowatt hour than any other electric car when it was launched. And again, from an energy savings point of view, that is to be applauded. A lighter vehicle needs a smaller battery pack, which in turn means fewer resources in the manufacturing process. It also, because of its energy consumption, means it's using less electricity, which means less carbon emissions if you use a blend of different electricity sources. It's that low consumption attitude which I feel not very many people stepped on with the i3, and that's a shame, because I genuinely think it was one of the car's strongest points. Next, let's talk about the interior and the driving position. The interior was light and airy, minimalist yet functional, and high quality enough to remind you that you were in a BMW. Designed for city driving, the i3's high-up position and narrow track did make it great for busy cities. It was nippy and had a powerful 125 kilowatt motor, which, when taken into consideration with the vehicle's low weight, gave a pretty decent power-to-weight ratio. Sadly, the car's carriage doors were less popular, especially as you had to open the front door to open the rear door. And that and the CFRP construction resulted in a beefy door sill that was all too easy to trip on when leaving the rear of the vehicle. Luggage space was less of a problem, although it wasn't great, but then it wasn't sold as a family car, and it did make up for the lack of rear load space with a pretty high roof line that swallowed quite a lot of things when you put the rear seats down. The idea to offer the i3 at launch with a pure electric and a range extended option wasn't so great, since the range extended engine wasn't particularly powerful, and while on paper did promise to extend the range between charging stations, wasn't used as such by everyone, and it was also used as an excuse by BMW to not bring out longer range variants. There were horror stories of i3s going super slow up hills because their battery packs had run low and the internal combustion two-cylinder engine just couldn't provide the power needed to keep the car climbing the hill at highway speeds. And that underpowered engine added extra complexity to the car's overall design and service schedule. Making CCS quick charging an optional extra on both variants at launch was also a bad choice, as in fact it is for any electric car. Rapid charging should be a standard fit item, not an extra. Also questionable was the slow response to longer range models. And while BMW did eventually bring out longer range variants of the i3 over time to give improved electric only range and battery pack upgrades that gave you access to the larger capacity batteries, it always felt like BMW was lagging behind some of the competition. And it was that, I think, which killed the i3, along with its high sticker price. When other cars were constantly being launched for less with more options and more range, the i3 looked less and less appealing, even though it was a luxury model. And in what has been some pretty notorious reliability issues on earlier cars, our very own Kate Walton-Elliott and her partner have suffered numerous problems with their i3, as some of her videos on this channel attest to. It wasn't the original concept, but the execution which let this car down. So how do I feel about the i3 going away? Well, I'm actually quite sad. BMW and the i3 had a way to challenge norms in the automotive industry. The manufacturing techniques learned to make the i3 light could have made it into mainstream models quite easily, and did in limited ways, but issues over repairability after accidents seem to have pulled BMW back to using more traditional construction techniques. And that's a shame. The i3 always felt like a futuristic car. It had noble goals, but it also suffered from a lack of dealer engagement and advertising, and it killed its own success, or rather BMW did. Nevertheless, I think it will be remembered as a very special car, warts and all. That's it. Thanks for watching, and if you'd like to help us make more videos like this, please do like, comment and subscribe. You can send us a couple of dollars our way every month through Patreon, feed our coffee habit with Ko-fi, or buy some merch from our swag store. I'll be back soon with more content for you all to enjoy, but until then, thanks for joining me and keep evolving.